And there are so many cool, complex people that come out of the woodwork here. That is just such a cool vibe.
I personally think Twin Cities is the best kept secret in the United States.
Okay, well, thank you guys so much for being here. Just going to do an God, I already started.
You got this. It's Saturday. You got this.
Oh, okay. Fade to black, come back strong.
Oh, here we go. I'm going to start laughing the whole time now.
David Kisan and Taylor Olien with Sip and Bloom.
That's us.
I got it? Okay, great. So thank you guys for being here today. I wore my floral shirt just for you.
I love it.
It's perfect.
Thank you. We're also sipping in
Yes.
in honor of you.
There we go.
Yes.
Cheers to that.
Cheers, cheers.
Yeah.
Ting, ting.
Tell us a little bit about what you guys do.
That's awesome. So Sip and Bloom is the DIY flower arranging workshop. Originally, we popped up in bars and breweries exclusively to teach you the tips and the tricks that sometimes only professional florists are privy to.
Okay.
And then along the way, we saw it as a really great guest experience that you can layer into a larger event. So we do tons of private event services here in the Twin Cities and actually more recently, very nationally. So Taylor just did an event with Burberry in Washington, D.C.
Yes.
And I teach
Super
regularly in Manhattan for Christian Dior.
Love that.
And so those are just some of our private event labels, but we also continue to teach lots of ticketed events around the Twin Cities.
Very cool. I love it. How big is your team?
It's just us two.
Just the two of you?
Yeah,
Just us.
it's just
Yeah. Oh my
us.
gosh, you're like hustling. Then I take it.
Oh, yeah.
A little busy.
We hustle.
Yeah.
This is our time of year. We just got over the hump of Mother's Day, which is truly Mother's Day weekend is our biggest weekend of the year. We do more business in those 48 hours than we'll do in the whole month of June and July.
Whoa.
So it's a very crucial time for us, but it's also a really exciting time.
Yeah.
So year over year, the Mother's Day event on the Sunday of Mother's Day gets bigger and bigger and bigger. This year we were at the Four Seasons Minneapolis in their Mill City Ballroom teaching, I think it was 130 by the time everything was done.
Holy smokes.
It's so much fun to see.
I was
other
picturing like
balls.
35, 40 people.
And that's the
our
standard.
usual.
That's what you'll see us do most often. But on the high holiday of Mother's Day,
Yeah.
you're
For real.
seeing a big room. And it was a really cool collaboration with Four Seasons.
Yeah.
I love that the night before you were out doing this. So we met recently doing
Yes.
Drinks in the Style
Yep.
with Greg over at the District and 9 Mile Gallery. So we were on a recording last weekend. I'm amazed that you were doing that the night before and then went and worked that event. Well, and also like that I was like texting you, be like, did you guys want to come on our podcast? Like, please. I didn't realize you were so busy. I'm so sorry.
Oh my gosh. No, I love it. And like any opportunity that we get to just be Sip and Bloom and do what we do best is what I want to do. So, and earlier that day, him and I were teaching a class at Malcolm Yards for Mother's Day as well, which was super cool to see. And just everyone that comes out is just awesome.
And that was a sold-out event at Malcolm Yards. They can have, I believe we had 70 people at that event, and they usually cap me at 60. So thank you to the team at Malcolm Yards for allowing me to bring more people than I'm supposed to.
That's awesome. How was the concept born?
Great question. So I am a third-generation florist. I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My mom ran a direct-to-consumer flower business when we were growing up.
Okay.
And so I was always surrounded, one, in a very creative household, but two, in a household of entrepreneurs who did, obviously, very floral-focused work. And coming from that background, I knew I didn't want to open a traditional practice, either a flower shop or a event-focused / bridal-focused floral business. Because I saw my parents go through it, and I was doing it with them.
You do that though too a little bit, don't you?
I do when my arm is twisted.
Under duress.
I do, and I'm so happy to help out friends and colleagues in the field with their ongoing work because we're all in this together. But the primary goal of Sip and Bloom is to teach flower arranging in a fun and approachable fashion. And
I
so
like that a lot.
yeah,
cool.
so that's kind of the background. When I moved to Twin Cities originally, we saw that the paint and sip workshops that are in different breweries around town were so popular. I was looking at them saying, wow, these people are really they have really found a really great community behind them. But I hated the painting. And I thought to myself, like, what can we do that's this? I wanted to be in that world. I loved the scene. I loved the people. I loved the artistry. Just didn't love the painting. And instantly it popped into my head. Flowers. Like, this is what everyone loves to have in their home. If I was just the consumer, I would be doing Sip and Bloom 4 or 5 times a year just because I entertain.
Yeah.
You know? And so that's kind of where the concept originally came from. Quickly thereafter, I found Taylor, who originally, you can tell the story.
Yeah. Our love story started at Sociable. I always say that because it's our love story. It's fun because I actually have my own little budget for flowers at my own house. So I told my girls, I'm like,
weekly? Sorry to interrupt.
yeah, like weekly, like literally.
Yeah, so do I
was
though.
Like,
It's for real, yeah.
I'm like, I'm gonna go and do this because this is something that gives me, like life back for my week. So I was like, girls, let's go, and got them together and we went to a class. And I had just left the design industry and I always crave work. So I was like, hey, if you ever need help. And ever since then, it'll be 3 years in October.
Beware of asking me if I ever need help.
Oh, I feel that on such a molecular
Because
level.
I
Yes.
need help.
Yeah.
In more ways than one.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
And it just worked. Ever since then, it just it blossomed from there. And yeah, I think it's fun because when we exchanged numbers, we already had each other's number.
That was the strange part.
Oh my
Wait,
God.
why?
So we had met somehow, somewhere before that.
Yeah.
And
You don't remember?
We still
No.
don't. We still can't
To
figure
this
it out.
day, somebody else is going to have to be like, hey, I remember, but no, it just was
mystery.
meant to be,
Yeah, some things are kismet.
Yeah.
Really, yeah.
That's so cool. I had that happen one time with somebody, but it was like somebody that wanted to take me on a date, and I was like, why do I already have your number in my phone? I was like, this isn't a good sign. This isn't happening.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Check, please.
I love that though. I'm the same way with flowers, like having flowers in my home was something like as a kid that felt very adult when you would see it in movies and stuff like that, like beautiful flowers in the foyer and stuff like that. And so at some point, like, I don't know, I just was like, you know what? No one is stopping me from having flowers in my house all the time. Like literally no one. And so now it's just like, I just actually bought some today. So yeah, had to put a fresh arrangement, and it's usually just like one thing, like roses or whatever. It's nothing fancy. But I love this. Sounds like so much fun to go to your guys' classes.
You have to come to one.
I
When
do
are we gonna
need
get you in?
You should come too.
I do.
Yeah,
I need to do it.
It's so fun.
Totally will.
Maybe we should do a live podcast from
Yeah, we should have brought some stuff
That'd
here
be
and
so
done it.
much
Yeah.
fun.
That would have been, well,
We can do it again.
future opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, we'll come to you
Coulda.
guys.
Yeah, that'd be super fun. So you're the Master Florist, Floral Privé. Tell us what that means, because I don't know that word.
So floral privé is a specific approach to flower arranging that is very much sort of how I was brought up into the skill set of flower arranging. What we like to focus in on is we think of flowers as a fashion house, if that makes any sense. So it's curated from start to finish in a very haute couture approach to flower arranging. And that's just sort of my background. And immediately in working through the process of developing Sip and Bloom, I knew that my first title as a founder was to be a floral privé for our audience. And then bilaterally, as Taylor began teaching as well, and I sort of brought her into the framework, didn't really mean to do this, but you gained all of that skill set and knowledge in order to also be in the same framework. So the approach is floral privé, and in learning that skill set, you become the master florist who can lead a group through our 1 hour flower arranging experience.
That's great.
Like the student has become the teacher kind of a thing?
Right. Very,
Okay.
very much so. Wax
All right.
on, wax off.
Show me wax on, wax off. Yes!
Miyagi shit. Some Miyagi shit. Okay, cool.
When did you start Sip and Bloom?
2019.
Oh,
Yeah.
How was that for you?
Moments before the pandemic.
I left my job to start my business right before December 2019. So I feel you.
December too.
Yeah.
I think we launched in September.
Okay.
So we launched right around the
same time frame. Yeah.
Yeah, and I originally was in a gap period because the reason we're in Twin Cities is my husband got a job opportunity here.
Okay.
That's what brought us here.
Mhm.
I was just finishing my master's at Seattle University.
Okay.
I knew I was headed towards entrepreneurship. I didn't have all of everything figured out yet, but I knew that's where I wanted to head. And then we switched cities and I lost my whole network of people.
Yeah.
So I arrived in Minneapolis and we landed in the North Loop, which is a fabulous part of
Great
town.
place to be,
Great
yeah.
place to be. Lots of great people to meet. But coming to Twin Cities without knowing anyone or without being from here, it instantly was a huge challenge for me to find work, specifically the type of work that I was doing on the West Coast. And so I just had to look inward and say, well, what are you passionate about? What is clearly a business opportunity coming from those paint and sip party ideas? And how can we mend those two worlds together? And so that's where Sip and Bloom originally began.
Okay.
So I have to say this. I hype him up, and you're so humble. And I feel like I just want to say that I'm born and raised here, and to see what he's done in that time of, opening and doing Sip and Bloom during a pandemic, and you just moved here and brought it to what it is today is such a cool, amazing thing that you've done. And it's so cool to see that spark from you and to see you inspire so many people that are both entrepreneurial and also just, entertaining Minneapolis and the metro area. So bravo to you, babe.
Because it goes beyond the floral stuff. Like,
Yeah, for sure.
you could kind of box it in like that, but like you're doing the fashion things. You're kind of doing so much. So it's really cool to see. And you're killing it on socials too. Like
Always.
And we'll get to that, I suppose. Too. I do want to ask you a little bit about the killing it on socials because that's a part of it. But yeah, I think that's
Yeah,
point.
it's so true. Like businesses who, long-standing businesses struggled to make it through COVID, especially like not even considering people who like had just started. Like we barely came out intact, or like hanging on by the skin of our teeth some days. And to make it through that with like a new concept and bringing something new is really cool.
And I don't know if you experienced this, but as a small business owner, I ran into a huge challenge, which was we didn't qualify for any of
I know
the,
exactly what you're going to say. Yes. The EIDL.
None of the SBA,
and,
we qualified for none. I didn't have enough.
You didn't have enough years behind you.
Correct.
Yeah. Same problem.
We had no numbers to take to the IRS and say, we deserve this. They were like, well, I'm so
Too
sorry.
fucking bad.
Unfortunately. So that was a very lean time in the Sip and Bloom world. But we decided that we had a fast start. In 2019, between September and when COVID originally, we're going to say, slowed us down, we had fast growth. So initially, our first official partnership was with First Draft, a cool local brewery hall style business where you could pour your own beer.
Oh yeah.
And they're since no longer.
I was gonna say they're not here anymore.
They're not here anymore. But they were a great business and our first original partner. And because they served a great array of local beer, when they posted about us on social media, almost every single brewery in this town reached out to me
cool.
and said, this is a great idea. We need you.
Yeah.
When can we schedule a date?
Yeah.
And in probably 2 months, I was across the whole metro area in 20 different locations.
Wow.
So it was a fast growth. But that being said, when COVID happened and I was forced to take a breath, I realized you are not keeping your books correctly. You do not have a website. You're paying Eventbrite a ridiculous amount of money per transaction.
Those fees.
Those fees are insane. It's completely insane. And in one way or another, you were gifted this opportunity to look inward and to figure out the infrastructure that you're going to need in order to continue with this growth.
That's great. I mean, it's hard to say sometimes when you're thinking about like how COVID affected a lot of people in really terrible ways, and like people lost their lives, they lost family members. But there were moments that were gifts to us. Like, and I feel very similar to that. Like I had never taken a breath in between like different jobs. I'd always like gone from one to the other and like never taken a break. And it was the first time Castine and I, my business partner, we lived together. And so we had nothing else to do. So we were like, you know what, we should probably just get our business shit together, you know, and like had time to sit down and talk about our values and like what we really wanted to do and how, you know, how we saw it progressing, which is totally different from the reality of it. But it gave us like this really nice, strong foundation of things that we can go back to when things are like, is this a right fit for us? Is this the thing we want to do? Does it really feed our values? Like those kind of things. And like having that time to reflect, especially if you're somebody who's like always on the go and always moving, it's a powerful gift to be given, even in a very hard circumstance.
Totally.
Yeah.
And it seems like this is the case, but you tell me.
Yeah.
I know I personally am a yes man. And so I say yes to everything, even though I know that I'm going to be spread so thin. But I think that was also another gift. It's like the moment of reflection and being able to just take a pause.
Yeah, and maybe just remind yourself that you maybe don't want to work like that all the time, which, I'm trying to remember that some days when I'm just like, maybe I don't want to do that 17 things today. I can be the same way where I'm just like overcommitted myself to things. That's why I'm always late, among other things. But
I'm like, what? What do you mean?
No, it's all good.
But yeah, it gives you a moment to kind of reflect on those things and like, just look at life a different way. So that's great. I love that. When did you come on board?
So I came on board, was it 2022?
Correct.
Yep. So October of 2022, I came in. And I was actually working during COVID, and still I was actually a sales rep for a luxury fabric company, and so I was still on the grind. But you know, when you find those times of when you can take a breath, and actually walked away for family, and this was a perfect opportunity for me to like still keep going and still, you know, have my own cadence in something, and so. That was the ability to do all of those in one and kind of just juggle. There is a beauty to it. And, you know, when I say jack of all trades, my friend, it's a real thing.
One thing that I think is so fabulous about Taylor is that being a designer, designing is part of her DNA. And I find that you continue to exceed expectations because it almost needs to come out of you. Like from the moment I met her, I was instantly like, I just, you know, my formal training in college and things like that were never in floristry. I studied architecture and design, theater as an original backdrop or platform for what I liked to create, but very design oriented, structure oriented. And the moment I saw Taylor, I was like, you're a designer. It's like it comes from your soul. Yeah, exactly. So it's been so gratifying to watch her growth in flowers, coming from a completely different background, but absolutely. I mean, a perfect example, when we first sat down today, you had mentioned the floral punching bag from Fashion Fight Night that she had designed. Spectacular.
And
nothing
so on point. Like
something that I just had in my head. I did a few AI renderings. Talked to the chat GPT. Sent them over to her. Hers were so over the top and amazing. It's stunning. It's stunning. So it's so cool to see her growth.
That's amazing. What is your like school background? I want to talk a little bit about yours too, but I want to know like where you came from.
So I actually was going to school for environmental biology. My dad actually owned a landscape design company for all my life, and so I ran a crew for him. And then I actually just needed a job, and I found a job with a local designer in Minneapolis. And I was like, oh, I actually like this and I'm good at it. So I said, screw that. I'm going to go. And I just finished at Normandale with business management, and then went into the design career and finished at Century. And so I have a degree in business management and interior design.
Cool.
So yeah, that's where a lot of that came from.
Were you part of the like getting your books right and stuff like that? Because you said you didn't have like the website and all that stuff.
Well, that would have happened at the beginning of
Before.
COVID before.
Oh,
I
you did that?
met
Okay,
her.
before you guys met.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I already had a lot of that.
Nice.
And I had gotten my master's from Seattle University in arts leadership, which is a hybrid MBA style program, but for creative ventures.
Oh, interesting.
And so it's actually the U of M has a very similar program. It's named something different, but it's a great place where. Whereas if you are an artist, but you realize that you need business acumen,
Yeah,
it is a resource that you can acquire.
That's
there.
huge because so many of us artists or just new business owners, we were like, we're doing the thing, but how do you do the back end of that thing? Like we even are still learning some of it, like on the video side, like. Just, even taxes can be like just a frickin'.
For sure.
We all know that, but yeah.
And one thing that I was taught and how it's actually like evolving in the education part of that creative side, whether it's interior design or whatnot, is that you are selling yourself.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you are selling a concept, you're selling a design, you're selling. So you need that. You need
Sometimes
that.
a lifestyle.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yep.
like your brand. You're selling your brand, and
This is who you are, and that's, people trust that, and now what are you going to do about it? As far as like business goes, and you need to be versed in that. It's not just, rearranging your room or just, giving people this experience. There's more to it on your back end that you need to understand to withhold all of that and have that foundation of your business. So.
do you see that, like, are there similarities or differences between coming from like the architectural sort of mindset or like background and then the interior design, or is it like, do those fit really well together? Because I feel like they could have a lot of similarities.
I've seen it. We mesh very well in that, like how we've worked together and how the opportunities that have been given to us. I mean, we did a wedding last year that was just fantastic, and both of our minds to it is really such a beautiful process for both of us to watch, I think, because we're like, we just did that.
Yeah.
It is something that, like, he has things that he teaches me, and I think that there are things that I teach him as well. And that together is, like, powerful. And it's so cool to watch that, like, come together. And
to your question, but also to what you just said there, I think that there's a slight variation between architecture and interior design, whereas architects think about the design more structurally,
Right.
and from a lens that's a bit more panned out, whereas interiors is so much about the details and the softness and how the actual guest experience comes together.
Yeah.
And so it's much more zoomed in, but both are completely necessary in order to create the whole picture.
when there's a real unity there, it shows.
Yeah.
And, like,
I can
because
see that.
I've seen it where it's like, if they don't collaborate in a certain space, that also shows.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Messy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's,
I hate messy.
Cute. It ain't cute.
no. I mean, and that's why I was asking, because I'm always kind of fascinated by floral artistry that is so architectural feeling and so just like sometimes like almost gravity defying in some ways that I'm like, I don't really even understand how that works. Like, I have no background in it. And when I started learning like about what a floral frog is and stuff like that I was like, blows my mind. I'm like, that's how you do that thing, Just
What's a floral frog?
I mean, how would
Come to our class. And
Yeah.
you'll find out.
Okay. All right.
I think
We won't spill the beans.
It's
Okay.
a
No,
small plate with, it looks like nails, needles.
Yeah, pins
or
coming out. Okay, yeah, I know that. Yeah,
and
yeah.
so
probably seen them.
you can
I've seen
place
them,
the
yeah.
flowers into that needle structure.
The stem pokes into the, yeah. I have seen
some
those.
more like
I've always wondered what
more
that's
strategic. Yeah.
it's called a frog.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had
It's
a
a
different
style. It's a
the
def-
pokey thing.
Yeah, the pokey thing.
That's what I call it. I don't
A
know.
lot of
I'm
pokey
just
things, my friend.
oh
I
shit.
love
Yeah.
Oh,
I like
cool.
that.
I learned something. I like that.
So you've moved from sort of the main, sip and bloom sort of tenant or whatever you were doing in the beginning, and now are producing more events, right? Is that the case, or what's the trajectory that you're on right now?
Well, we naturally are event planners.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously there's a level of planning that you have to do in order to complete one of our ticketed events.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be as small as a 10-person group at a local brewery or a bachelorette party. And we're going to an Airbnb and teaching it there on site. But when you're talking about our Mother's Day event, which is
Not a small endeavor.
130 people at the Four Seasons Ballroom. And, there's definitely a level of experience in guest curation and overall management of the event that you have to provide one way or another. And so that's definitely been part of it. But then our runway events, of which one is coming up here. And
I know, I'm so excited.
Yeah, so on
It's one of the venues that we manage, so I'm very excited about it
That's
at the
correct.
Hollywood
So
Theater.
on May 22nd, we're going to be at the Hollywood Theater in Northeast Minneapolis. It's a beautiful venue, an original Art Deco cinema that they have transformed into, most prominently known as a wedding venue, I would say.
Yeah.
But we're transforming it into a really beautiful oval configuration runway event. And it's going to be really, really stunning. So part of being a floral privé is, again, going back into the tradition of haute couture, flowers as wearable objects. And so that's always at the core of how we design and how we think about flowers. And so floral wearables are something that we will both be featuring on the body, but also I designed a 16-piece collection of custom-made shoes that integrate flowers.
Posted this on Instagram, I think, just recently. I just saw
this
it.
morning.
I was going to say, I feel like I just saw it recently. Yes.
It's new. But this is now the 5th year that we've done this event.
Okay.
And so every year it gets bigger, more shoes, more stuff. Taylor's curating these really beautiful mannequin forms that will almost look like a dress of flowers.
Oh my God, beautiful.
It will be situated around the room.
Gorgeous.
Something that's a soft guest experience that you can see. And so, but yes, all to say, from an event planning standpoint, we both have to do it and we indulge.
Yeah. That's so great. Is the oval room portion of it new, or has that always been like a part of this?
It's new. So
okay.
I
don't know if everybody knows exactly what that is.
Let's talk about that one for sure. So every season I choose a theme. And so it's whatever's generally inspiring me, especially in the world of fashion at the moment. And from that theme, it's a very organic process where we bring in the rest of our team members, Taylor from a floral perspective, Amy Seaman from a fashion and styling perspective, Sloan Salon from a hair and makeup perspective. Actually, this year, the makeup is coming from Christian Dior Cosmetics. And we sort of dive deep into whatever that theme is and then start to pull pieces into the actual runway presentation so that the end consumer gets a taste of what we've been working on behind the scenes. And so the Oval Room was the traditional designer boutique within Dayton's when Dayton's was in downtown Minneapolis. And it was a very beautifully curated small section of designer clothing. And it had a whole history and mystique within this community that is very, very pertinent and continues to be talked about within fashionable circles. And so I wanted, as someone who's not from here, to explore that further. What is the history of this? Why did it have such pertinence? And what does it mean today to be Oval Room? Right? Because that room is no longer there.
Right.
To be honest, I recently toured it.
Yeah.
So the bones of it are still there. And I was able to get a little taste for that. But the Dayton's department store is long gone. And so through this show, we were able to research all of those different pieces and then revive the concept of Oval Room for a contemporary audience. So
That's cool.
How are you getting dressed today? Where are you shopping? Are you shopping at one of our runway partners, whether that's Martin Patrick 3, Requisite, Generation Bliss? Are you buying custom clothing from a haute couturier here in Minneapolis, like House of Kaylin, who will be showing on our show? Or are you buying digitally? So we're integrating some digital pieces that we are sourcing from outside of the city because that's real life. That's how people are getting dressed.
A lot of people are getting dressed these days.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We want that to be part of the reality of the show and what you're seeing. So it's a really interesting, fun exploration of fashion and flowers. And so it's going to be a cool show.
It's iconic for Minneapolis fashion. I mean, it's true and tried to my heart because my grandmother actually walked in an oval room show back in
Really?
1942, was it? And I found this picture and I sent it to David, and I was like, this is just the oval room was a big thing in our house. And
Do you still have the photo?
I do not on me, but
Oh, no, but
I have it.
share it with us after.
Yeah.
She's
Love to see
just
that.
in this. It's iconic. It's like, it's so, like, you think of almost like a Chanel tweed. Like, that's how, it's something that's beautiful historically, and just when you really get to know the designs of that and like how it influenced fashion at that time and how it continues to show up in our lives now, and like how we dress is just, it's chef's kiss. And so when he said oval room, I was like, you are speaking my lingo, my friend.
Yes.
And I can't wait to put my own twist on it, because you think about your own fit while flowers are also involved, and I'm so stoked. It's going to be incredible.
Part of your lineage, like the family lineage. Now, that's very cool. I mean, I didn't grow up here in the Twin Cities, but even just like knowing of it through like the zeitgeist, like I know of the oval room, and it conjures up like a really specific image of very like high end, like classy ladies,
an echelon, for
getting
sure.
things brought to you and selected for you and all of that. That is really amazing. So I'm excited for it. I know Alex has been talking about it, and she's very excited about it over at the Hollywood. So very excited to see it. Sounds very cool. Sorry, I feel like I've been like...
No, you're good. You're good.
monopolizing.
No, I'm so out of my element in all this. I'm just gonna be straight up honest. But I'm so interested in it, and I'm learning it so much. But
I really
I'm
like
definitely
that we
like
have an address that like everyone's wearing sunglasses.
Talk about iconic.
Oh my god.
Except me, but
yeah.
Well, it's fashion.
Right.
It's beauty, it's elegance, there's florals.
I love all that. What's up, Jess?
No, I'm just laughing.
What's up?
And then you're like neon greens.
I know. That's what, when you guys are talking fashion, I want to be like, you don't even know who you're talking to. I have zero fashion sense. I still need somebody to dress me. No, I was actually interested
Got the
though.
clerk at Shields working for him.
What was that?
Just kidding.
These are, what is it? DJ Alex Knights?
Alex Knight,
Yeah.
yeah,
Shout out to Alex Knight. Yeah.
DJ.
I wore this on a
wears-
different podcast,
He
and
only
like
wears
halfway
things that have
through,
been
I was
thrown
like,
at
I
him
gotta.
in a crowd, like a t-shirt.
I only wear this shit left behind. Yeah.
Lost and found.
Yeah, you might find a
You
couple
rock
of these
it.
on the floor at the end of the night. I don't know. Yeah.
People all around the metro are going to be wearing these.
No, I wanted to ask you though, just like the come up of the business. Like, what were some of the things that you kind of mentioned a little bit, like 10 breweries or whatever reached out, or however many it was. But like, what other things do you think contributed to like the fast growth?
We were always and this is probably just coming from me being the founder and having direct interest in things like this, but I always felt it important as we found success to give back through our local philanthropies.
Mm-hmm.
So, perfect example, this Mother's Day weekend was also Wine Fest weekend, a charity that's near and dear to my heart. So that raises this year $1.9 million for Children's Masonic at the U for pediatric cancer research. And that philanthropy plus so many other local philanthropic efforts. Usually at this point, they're reaching out to me more now than I was searching for them at the beginning. Mm-hmm. But it's super important, in my opinion, to give back to projects like that one. And in doing so, I mean, at first I was just doing it because I felt like that's what we should do. And then quickly after, you realize like you're exposed to so many fabulous people who also have the same values as you, that they care about the same things that you're worried about. And so projects like that definitely fuel the fire and the growth that we've seen.
And the giving back that was like, hey, we're going to come to a class there.
Yeah, so a lot of times I'm giving away tickets for auctions, silent auctions. Gotcha. For Wine Fest, it's a little bit different. They were one of our first philanthropic partners, so I do a lot for them. So I am designing all of the flowers for the Lux Lunch, which is one of their gala presentations. I also donate a private group of 10 Sip and Bloom workshop, where that's an auction item that the end consumer, I'm building a private workshop just for them and 9 of their closest friends. And so, but once again, in doing so, you're meeting great people.
Yeah.
You're connecting to the wider community. You're showing your values too, which allows our audience to connect with us more holistically in a deeper, more authentic way. So that's a really helpful way. And I'm going to be honest, outside of that, social media.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the name of the game.
Pretty sure we worked with them.
Who?
The U of M Children's Masonic.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we've worked with them.
And
Yeah,
they do
we
a
have-
lot of
we have
different
another one.
programs. So it's not exclusively Winefest. Winefest is the one I get involved in, but they also do an event called Fashion Fest. They do a few other smaller programs throughout the year, all of which go to the same cause.
We're doing like a kids' fashion
the
show.
Foundation.
Children's. Yeah, they have like a children's fashion show
Couture.
for kids. I think
Oh,
so.
fun.
Fun.
I didn't even know about
That's
that
so
one.
cute.
That is cute. I
We
love
should get
that.
linked up. No, we did it last year at Hutton House, and this year they're doing it at Machine Shop.
Nice. I love that venue.
I think in July.
I have to say, going off of that, when you meet a group of people like that and you have the tenacity of the entrepreneur that you are and that a lot of other small businesses are trying to do and rebuild after, going back to COVID is something that's infectious. And when you meet that with other people, it just spreads. And it's, fun to see that. I think Minnesota has a community that just wants to uplift, and you see that and who excels and who gives back and wants to be a part of it shows. And there's just success with that. Even like, again, with the philanthropy and, that element to it, it just keeps on going. So
I think it's something that like it feeds your social capital, right? Not always your monetary capital,
Right.
but your social capital can lead to the monetary capital, right? Like that is something that I've always been rich in social capital, not always so much in the other kind, but but sometimes that like works out really well for you because you can call on people when you need them. If you've helped somebody, they can help you, and it's it's not about like quid pro quo, but about just like wanting to be helpful and help people with their things, and then that just leads to opportunities down the road. And I think I've seen Sip and Bloom on a lot of silent auctions with events that I've done when I was like, oh, that'd be so cool to do. Like, still have not done it, but we will soon.
Gotta win one of those auctions.
I
really
never
small.
bid on the auction things. If I bid every time there's a silent auction when I'm working an event, I'd have even less of that other capital. Like, I'd have so little capital. It's very tempting though. I always peruse them. I'm like, what if I'm like, no, just leave it alone.
I mean, you can't bid with social.
I know. Unfortunately, they do not let me bid with social capital.
I bid my good spirit.
That's a new kind of Bitcoin that I haven't heard about.
I was gonna say we did some networking events together that we just show up to with Ed from Starlux, and I think I remember you saying that you do you have a studio? Do you work out of a studio?
I do not.
Okay,
no.
and that's
we're a 100% pop-up business.
Yes.
I do use a second bedroom in my home as an office space that allows me both to have a place to just keep some of the equipment, but also marketing is a huge piece of this puzzle, and I spend an exuberant amount of time doing all of the correspondence behind the scenes to make our events come to life. And so we have a hub in that format, but we do not have anything that's open to the public.
I thought that was cool too, where you were saying, I think at the last meeting that we were at the Hollywood, that you don't even have like a big fridge that you like keep stuff in.
No, we don't
You
have a
guys are-
cooler.
Yeah.
So our process is very deliberately designed. So we source all of our flowers for the events the day of direct from wholesale, meaning that the end consumer is leaving with the absolute freshest product that is
That's
available in Minneapolis year round.
Yep.
So we don't keep any of that product for any additional amount of time than it is unloaded from trucks and planes that come from all over the world. A lot of our roses are grown in Ecuador. A lot of our tulips are grown in Holland. And also we have an amazing array of domestic flowers, both from California, and now that we're coming into the summer season, we'll have more and more that are locally grown in Minneapolis and St. Paul. But all to say that while we don't eliminate the middleman, we have a wholesaler who is actually sourcing all of those materials for us. we are not holding on to that product for any extra amount of time. So
That's
with
cool.
flowers, it's a really tight time game of
Yeah.
wanting to get the product into the hands of the consumer as quickly as possible so that they have the maximum time with it in their homes.
That's so cool.
Is there, I imagine that this might work well in your favor with that sort of concept and what you're doing, that not doing weddings and things like that where people necessarily have an expectation of the individual blooms that will be sitting in front of them.
Yep.
So you have a lot of leeway. You show up with what you show up and you give them like the most amazing product that is the freshest and the nicest and the most in season without having the constraints of like what they thought it would look like.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
You're 100%
Okay,
correct.
that's very cool.
If you have any florists that follow this show,
Yeah.
I know that you have a lot of event people that follow you, but they'll get a little chuckle out of this one. So because we do not limit ourselves to any direct color scheme, specific type of bloom,
Yeah.
time of year, etc., and we have sort of that wide opening creatively, a lot of my colleagues in the field have started calling me Picasso or the cooler. Because I'm going into Kohler and Drum, and Taylor does this as well, but we're picking the absolute freshest
Yeah.
product, and it could be anything. And
Yeah.
sometimes what's so cool about being a florist in the botanical landscape is sometimes I'm picking something out. I don't even know what it is. I have to get up to the cash register. Sometimes that gets scary.
Yeah. They're like, I don't know.
Tell me what the
I'm
damn
going
it
up to
is.
the cash register and I'm learning something new about a brand new varietal or something that we've never had access to
Yeah.
before. And so I'm always learning and able to capture really cool, unique things in crazy color combinations, which I absolutely love.
That's
I
cool.
love to blur the lines of the traditional
Yeah.
flower arranging and really bring in some creative materials, because I don't want you to feel like you're coming to one of my workshops and you saw any of this stuff at Trader Joe's.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Not
Like you
to
could
say
just
that
get
there's
that
anything
bouquet.
the matter with Trader Joe's
Right.
flowers,
Yeah.
but it's not necessarily what you're going to see at a Sip and Bloom.
Right. And there's, you're going to Trader Joe's and maybe you're buying one of those like pre-mixed ones that's already like made into a little arrangement rather than going to the ones and like selecting your own.
That's me. That's been me. Yeah.
No shame.
No shame. Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. But yeah, having somebody who's thinking outside the box or bringing in something that's really unique, and also just like that, even if you don't know what it is, to go to the register, you can find out quickly what it is and like explain things like that to people, which I think is very cool. I like that a lot. So
I got that. app.
It's always inspiring. You know what I mean? That's the hyper creativity behind us too, is that we walk into the cooler and we just see these beautiful pieces that we're honored to like get and to be able to have access to. And it's not approachable. That's the thing, is like who comes to our workshops, they're able to conceptualize that and still bring that back to their home if they want to, and be able to construct something like that from a grocer if they so choose. But then there's inspiration to come back to us and learn different things, because one of my favorite things is that we pick different florals every time, right? And each person goes up to the bloom bar and they pick and create something so different, which is so cool for me to see, because I'm like, it's just awesome to see them bloom.
So you guys have like a table, and then each person just gets to go up and kind of select some florals, and then they go back and do
Yeah,
it.
so we got everyone through a 1 hour activation where you enter, you're choosing your vase or vessel that you're utilizing to build your design. We're walking you through the floral mechanics, and then you're picking your own flowers.
Okay. And you supply the vases as well?
Everything.
Wow,
Yeah.
cool.
We want you to just show up,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
have outfit
yeah.
and have fun.
I mean, the cool thing too with that is like you could go to it multiple times and walk out with like different information every time based on like the vessel that you pick and the flowers that you're getting and the time of year and all that.
And it's so interesting to see some of our guests who, at this point, I just, Mother's Day weekend, I was at the Fox and Pantry where we're the in-house florist. And there was a gal, and I was so excited to see her. I'm not going to name her, but I was so excited to see her. And I
Probably
said,
know who you are.
how many flower arranging workshops have you done with us?
Yeah.
And she said, this is my 9th.
What?
How cool is that?
That's
She's
amazing.
done 9.
Okay.
The first time she came through, I'm not naming her, so she won't know. But the first time she came through, I'm not going to say that the flower arrangement was absolutely amazing.
Sure.
But her most recent one was incredible. The amount of growth that you saw
Yeah.
over that time period, and now she knows sort of some things that I'm going to do. She can sort of conceptualize ahead of time some of the moves that we're going to make throughout the workshop. So she's making more authentic decisions. Her design comes out all the more professional. It's really cool to see. So we're excited that our guests can come time and time again and pick up more information.
I mean, it becomes after a time like a master class. Like you, instead of going to like a floral design school, just keep coming back to the workshops over.
Absolutely.
It's probably a lot cheaper too to do that.
I would imagine so.
And you can sip.
Yeah,
exactly.
that too.
It's fun, and you bring friends, and you make an afternoon or an evening out.
That's fun.
It's a really good time.
I love that.
I gotta ask, what's favorite flower?
I knew that was going to come up.
You want to go first?
Yeah, either
So that I
one.
have time to figure this out.
The first thing that comes to mind, mine are all just more, they have sentimental value more so. That's what I have on I have a sleeve here I have a sleeve that is for my mother and my grandmother. My grandmother had a beautiful garden that she curated that still comes up every year, and it's just without fail. But she loved hollyhocks, and I love hollyhocks. We don't teach with them, but you know, if they ever did come, that was a teachable moment. We'd probably do it, but then there's a different. Each flower gives me a different passion and motivation, I feel like. So it's hard for me to say that there's one significant one, but most of them come
It's like
from,
asking someone, what's your favorite song? It's like, there's a million good songs.
People say colors and stuff like that. I will say songs are like a genre. Yeah, that's how flowers are to me.
Yeah.
I love
And
that.
like, I just learning more about them. I've learned to love certain varietals that maybe one point I didn't really care for, but it's a beautiful
part
thing.
of that for I think me as well.
Yeah.
I've been on a carnation kick at Sip and Bloom because you'll have to come to one of our workshops in order to experience this firsthand. But I've learned some modernist florist tricks that no lie I picked up on the TikTok.
Yeah.
And it really transforms a carnation into something that, as someone who has grown up with really beautiful flowers around, would never pick that flower up originally.
Right.
And now I'm picking it up almost every time I'm at the wholesaler because you can learn how to manicure and refine a flower to a more elevated level than what you're just getting at the wholesaler or at the grocer, as we were talking about. So there's tips and tricks to refine different product.
So you're like trimming it a little bit different, or like taking off leaves or something, and then
I've seen something like this.
You're just
Yeah.
zhuzhing it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. But I'm not going to say that the carnation is my favorite flower, though. There's a flower, a black iris.
Ooh,
It's
yummy.
very incredibly rare. It's very hard to get in Minnesota. I haven't been able to source it. I'm obsessed with that flower.
Okay. That's cool.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of a famous flower in a way because I've heard. I don't know. I can't even tell you what. I couldn't pick it out of a lineup.
Well,
but I've heard about it.
Did you watch Capote and the Swans?
Never heard of that.
Okay.
Sorry.
It's a very specific film. But anyway, one of the swans, that was her favorite flower. That's probably the reason I like it.
That's cool.
That's awesome.
See, sentimental value, my friend.
I mean,
it's true.
It's
Back to memories. Flowers are memories.
They are. They're very sentimental. I think I have a like almost full back tattoo that's all flowers,
Yeah.
and they're all like sentimental. It's not every single one of them, but the structure of it is very sentimental, and there's like a lot of like meaning behind it and stuff. And yeah, that's one thing that I always say. Like, I might get tired of certain things with events. I might get tired of like, food or whatever. Never get tired of taking home flowers, ever. Leftover flowers, leave me all of them. I will take them all. I take them all home with me. So, yeah.
I was just over at the Hollywood doing a tour while they were setting up for another event.
Yeah.
And I want to say, is it Studio? I forget who was the florist. No.
Oh,
Stu-
was it for Open Arms?
yes.
Oh, shoot. I
Who's
don't
the
know.
florist for that
I
event?
don't remember. But they were beautiful because
All to say, we're going to figure out who that florist was and we're going to give them credit. Because they took popcorn containers
Yes.
and they filled it with the most beautiful roses, pink and red roses, and sprayed gold
What are they? They were like the,
anthurium.
yeah.
And they were some of the prettiest designs. I have a picture. I'll send it to you so we can layer it onto this.
Yes.
We'll find out who it was.
And we'll find out who the
Yeah,
florist
yeah.
is, and we'll tag them in it. But but Like I had never seen that before.
It was very that's some of those are at my house right now, actually.
Are you joking? Lucky you.
I know.
Wait,
I know.
that's the TV. You gotta watch the new Mission Impossible with that next to you.
I don't have the popcorn thing, but they Alex did take some of them, and she's like, "Do you want some flowers?" Like, absolutely, yes, please bring. And I live like 5 minutes away, and I was like,
so beautiful.
I'm sure you have a picture of it with a cat sitting next to it.
Yeah, of course, yeah. That's the only thing that I can't take home with me. I have to Google. I was like, is this lethal to cats? I probably should take those
Shit.
home.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, the whole.
be a little
People ask us that all the time, and most of our flowers are always.
I try to dodge the lethal ones.
Yeah, it's tricky sometimes, but that's good. It's a pain in the ass. They are a pain in the ass.
Keep pet lovers in mind for sure.
I wanted to ask you about socials.
Yeah.
More. Tell us, not the secret, but like, tell us some just things that that like really. Obviously, it's like going to events and meeting people, and then
Social capital.
the social capital. But like, what other strategies? Like, what do you have like a strategy behind some of what you're doing? Like, or are you just kind of like when there's an event, you're posting during that. Like, give me some ins and outs a little bit.
So, Instagram is primarily what we're talking about here because that's my focused tool that I utilize the most. And I chose that because florals are a very visual.
Need your eyeballs.
You need your eyeballs for them. And so Instagram just naturally blends itself into that. What I have found most successful in growing our social media is I treat it like a lifestyle. I treat it like something that I have to do every single day. It is a priority on my list, even though I have a ton of other things that I would rather do or need to do, or I owe someone an email. I always owe someone an email. Cheers to all of you out there.
Yeah. He's not ignoring you for the socials. It's part of the job.
We're like kind of busy. We're just a little busy.
Well, our audience is the end consumer, and so we do need to continue to build that platform to the masses. I am constantly, it's not great, but I'm constantly seeing what our different colleagues, both locally, nationally, and internationally, are doing in floral-related businesses, in entrepreneur-style businesses, definitely in event planning world. I need to know what everyone's up to. And I just sort of authentically am intrigued at what you post that worked, Like one thing that blew my mind, I can't believe this one worked. I saw, maybe it was from Profeshi or maybe it was from another local photographer, but someone used ChatGPT to make a Ken doll or a Barbie doll out of them.
Yes.
And I instantly was like, I have that tool. So I quickly pulled out my phone. I asked ChatGPT, I sent them a photo of me, and I asked them to make a Ken Sip and Bloom doll. And for some reason, that post blew up.
Yeah.
And it's so crazy because it's like, someone had mentioned the floral shoe post that I just posted earlier today. That one took a ton of work. Like I spent an exuberant amount of time making that all come together and designed well.
Beautiful little flat lay sort of vibes.
Exactly, exactly. I don't know. I think it got 25 likes.
I mean, it's early. It's early.
It's early. Who knows?
It's been like 8 hours.
Don't count the chickens till the cows come home or something like that. But the little Ken doll that literally took me 5 minutes, ChatGPT tool, posted it without even looking at if this is a good time to post or not, and not using any algorithms or other pieces of the pie. Sometimes it's just magic and it works, and that brought a lot of attention. And I was just back home in Pittsburgh for a family reunion, and one of my cousins came up to me and she said, I can't believe they made a Ken doll out of you. And I'm giggling so hard. I'm like, Mattel doesn't even know who I am.
Right.
I love that.
Hopefully now they do. But I honestly think that, David, you have like a knack for it too. When you have a knack for it, and honestly, the consistency that is given to our social media platform shows. And when you have consistency and you have the followers that we do, you can't really go wrong with the inspiration of floral either.
Right.
So when you have all of that combination, dedication, and just, again, the platform that we have, I'm surprised that more people don't use it. So when they don't use it, I think that's really part of the key is, again, consistency.
The consistency is huge, like especially because you are doing so many things and like having workshops and all that, having like that kind of collateral to feed into the system is amazing. Like that can be tricky when you're on the venue side of things. Sometimes it's like I can only, not only, but for the most part, use photos that I get from other people at events. I'm always like, can I get some pictures? Can I get some pictures? Like, so being able to be consistent with it is really hard. So like having that busy of a schedule can help, like I imagine, help feed that. And being able to be consistent with it is like keeping you fresh in people's algorithm and all of that. So.
Well,
That's a good point that I have never considered.
Yeah, it's hard sometimes if you're not, if you don't, because like we're not doing events every single day, and not every event will share photos necessarily. Like some corporate entities don't want to share photos, or some weddings maybe are not as comfortable with it, which is totally fine. But it's getting those images sometimes can be challenging.
Can I say, though, a recent experience that I had that was quite successful on stories, and this just happened very organically to me, and then I was like, why don't I do that more? I was working from home, just on my kitchen island, whatever. I was building, actually, a mood board at that time for the upcoming runway show, and a friend texted me who lives down the hall, and she had just made this really beautiful pasta salad. She was like, I made too much. Would you be down to like have some so I don't have to throw it away? I'm like, yeah, come on. And whatever, she brings it over to me, and I'm like, it's so beautiful. I gotta take a picture. So I put it, like I held it in one hand, snapped the photo with the other, and in the background I had my computer, and I just put working from home with the mood board. And so it became a relevant piece of
You're
content,
still tying it back in.
even though it had nothing to do with Sip and Bloom, and you're never going to have this pasta salad at a Sip and Bloom.
Yeah.
But it got mad engagement because you
cool.
kind of like showed them like a little bit of like what you're working on, you know, and they saw the mood board in the background, and a lot of people commented and were like, I see that.
Yeah.
Like,
A little
what are
Easter
we
egg
gonna
sort
see?
of.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think utilizing the lifestyle that you have to live as an event person can be just as intriguing as the final product.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that like it seems, and I'm no expert at all on social media by any means, but the authenticity is so much more impactful these days than curation, like heavily curated. Like people,
and they kind of want to know the people behind the Hollywood or behind any of your other venues. Like, yeah, those are buildings.
They're beautiful.
But why we love them is like people bring them to life.
Yeah. No, that's fair. That's fair. We definitely need to up our social media game. It's a little lacking right now, but I can barely keep up with my own personal.
I feel like everyone feels that way. You know, as someone who's working with you directly right now, and let's just use this as an example. So I finished a meeting with Alex just the other day, and afterwards I had 30 minutes until my next meeting. So I just popped into the little pizza place a few doors down from the Hollywood. Parkway Pizza. Super cute spot. Great for watching the Timberwolves. But anyway, I'm talking to the bartender that was working in there. She was so sweet. And she was like, we're just so excited that the Hollywood is like bringing business into our neighborhood, into our small businesses. And so there's a lot of talk in town because I think for a long time, unless you lived in that neighborhood of Northeast Minneapolis, you probably don't even know what the Hollywood is. And it's just starting to gain, again, that social capital that you were talking about earlier, because people are like, wait, what is this? And why is it so beautiful? And how is it so perfectly curated and brought into a contemporary lens?
It's a beautiful space. And also, I agree, like the neighborhood has been very, very supportive to the point where like last year we did Doors Open. I don't know if you've been to that ever, which is like this really amazing Minneapolis thing where like, or Minneapolis and St. Paul, I guess, where you can go into buildings that may not be normally open to the public. So like you can go to like the Star Tribune building and like all these different spaces. And we were part of it last year. We couldn't do it this year because we had events. But I thought like, it's 2 days. It's like Saturday and Sunday. I think you're there for like 8, maybe 10 hours a day or something like that. And I thought like, we'll get like 200-300 people through the door, like whatever. I talked to over 1,000 people.
Isn't that wild?
I had lost my voice by Sunday. Like so many people that were like, I used to live in this neighborhood, or I used to come here as a kid, or like I talked to this. I learned so many facts about the Hollywood being there that weekend of people who were like, There was one guy who was like, I came to one of the very last shows here, and like he's like the seat next to me had a mop bucket in it because the ceiling was leaking. And there's one guy who came in who told me that at one point when the ceiling had like collapsed because it was vacant for like 40 years or something. It was vacant for a really long time. It was almost demolished. The neighborhood actually rallied and got it put on the National Historic Registry. So that's how it ended up on the Historic Registry. And then it still sat empty for a long time because it wasn't low-hanging fruit by any means. And the basement used to flood so bad. It would be like up to the main level. Like it would just be like water.
Swimming pool.
Yeah, swimming pool essentially. And this gentleman came in, he said, I used to work for the city of Minneapolis. And he said, we used to have to do mosquito abatement in the building because it was the flooding was so bad. So like they'd go around and spray everything outside and then come into the Hollywood to spray because I'm sure it was just like a mosquito, feast in there.
You can't tell. It looks so good now.
So pristine.
Yeah.
I would have never even have.
Oh, it was rough. It was and I know like it's not like the photos that are the glossy, like beautiful ones, but I do actually kind of love some of the old ones. If you Google some of the historic photos from when it was in its more decrepit age, I don't know, it's just like perfect, like
I gotta see it.
Patina sort of, it's really beautiful. So
people
in a weird way.
value, I will say in Minneapolis, people value, everyone values nostalgia. But I think that historical part of Minneapolis and St. Paul that we like love and cold, true, and tried is just everyone has a story for it, and that's what brings back that beauty of what once was, and it becomes something even better. And I think that that's something so cool about Minneapolis that we bring back that historic nostalgia.
Bringing it back. Well, and you two are both tapping into some of that in different, like with the fight night or the fashion fight night, because that is one that used to happen, and then you brought it back, right?
Yes.
And then now with the Oval Room, which is like a beautiful Dayton's callback. I wasn't there for the fight night, but I heard, and it was at Machine Shop, which is like used to be my baby, so I love Machine Shop. But you were there, yeah? Yeah.
It was awesome. It was so cool.
I'm in awe.
I was waiting for.
I'm in awe how that event not only succeeded and thrived and brought an interesting light on our ongoing work, but I was just with a fabulous person who happened to win this year's Fashion Fight Night, Chanel.
So good.
And I had originally met her at Nordstrom, where she was a stylist out of the men's shoe department. And she was like my fairy godmother during when we first got the Dior contract in New York. This was last year. Last year at the beginning of the year. And I'm panicking because I'm about to go to headquarters, LVMH. Like this is like the mecca of fashion and design, and what do you wear? And so I went and I found it was during the designer clearance sale at Nordstrom, and Chanel was there, and she said, "I got you." And she was just so calm and peaceful, and just had her wits about her when I did not. And she got me all going. She got me styled, and years later, we're doing Fashion Fight Night, and we reach out to her, just a cold DM on Instagram, and I'm like, would you be willing to participate? Send her all the information. She joins us, and she said today when I was talking to her that it was just a time where she was going through a lot of change in her life, and she was ready to move to a different thing, but she didn't have the push yet. And that Fashion Fight Night was the thing that totally gave her whole life a change. And now she's with Martin Patrick III, one of our ongoing sponsors of private events. And they're just really great people to have in our corner for the type of work that we're doing. And she's now a stylist with them and so happy. She was glowing today, just so full of life and excitement and seeing that transformation too and being a small part of it because there were so many other pieces but the events, they change people's lives. You don't know it. You don't know it.
I was taking photos, and I'll give Alex a few to put up. But you could see how emotional it was for her. It was such a big deal. It was awesome.
You can tell how true and tried of a stylist she is, because when you can take anything and you can style the way she did, and a lot of those other stylists that are on stage, seasoned and new, it's such a beautiful transformation to see their talent. And, it is bigger than you think, especially when she gets up there and you changed, or I should say Fight Night changed that direction for her. And it's so cool to see that and see how Fight Night can
Yeah. No, it's awesome. Where did
be
the
so different.
inspiration even come from to like rebirth that?
Yeah, great question. So as you had mentioned also earlier, a lot of my work revolves around not being from here and wanting to explore more of Minnesota's history and how this place is, in my opinion, so magical. And so I find something like supper clubs or the Oval Room or
Rotary.
I mean there's so many directions we can go to this. Mosquitoes.
I was gonna say glam slam. Are we doing that yet? But mosquitoes is probably
I
better.
learn about one of these things and then I want to do a deeper dive and I'm like, well, let's bring this into our work because yes, it will have nostalgia points, which is so important to our larger community, but also it allows me to really learn something more holistically and be more authentic as we present these things, because fashion, it means, and flowers and styling, it all comes from a really unifying place for all of us. But the more that we can learn about things we don't know about, for me, Minnesota, and bring that to our art, I think it gets people like really engaged in the work more. Yeah. And also I get to learn a bunch along the way.
Yeah.
I know so much about the Oval Room that I did not know.
And that's like, I think Minnesotans and specifically, we are so accustomed to being like the underdog about certain things that like we have a lot of pride in the things that are ours here or, that are like specific and that people don't know about on the coast, and you wouldn't know that we had this like beautiful, the Oval Room experience and all of that kind of stuff. People think it's such like a flyover, right? Like, what did Anna Wintour say about Minnesotans that like we looked like bowls of mashed potatoes or something like that?
Did you say that?
Yeah.
Gosh,
Which I mean,
she's on our naughty list.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing is that
I think she was at the Mall of America though, so I mean.
I do sometimes like to dodge them all.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, someone who worked there at one point, I was like, oh no, she wasn't wrong, but yeah, not 100%.
I love when we can open up how complex and how many layers us Minnesotans do truly have, and like how people say that we're a hardy group of people. Yeah, we are, but we also have
because of the winters.
Yeah. And also we have so much availability to be creative and step outside of that comfort zone that a lot of people think that we're just stuck in.
Right.
Yeah, we do have meat and potatoes, but how are we going to there's more to it that opens up our imagination to garnish those meat and potatoes that people probably wouldn't have thought. And I love that from somebody that's not from here and somebody who has been born and raised sees that value and sees what we do bring to the table because, honey, we have it.
Yeah.
And there are so many cool, complex people that come out of the woodwork here that is just such a cool
I personally think Twin Cities is the best kept secret in the United States.
I agree.
I think
the food here is fantastic.
Do we really want everyone to know?
I mean, that's what.
Well, if you don't ask, you don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's like a Prince quote. He said like something about how it's the cold is good here because it keeps the bad people out or something like that.
I love that for Prince.
Yeah. So
good.
Yeah, I think that's great, and it's nice to hear a transplant that has a good experience here because not everybody does. Not everybody does because we're not always great at welcoming strangers here. But I'm glad that hasn't been the case.
Here, Minnesota nice.
Minnesota nice, but it's like I think I heard someone say one time Minnesotans will give you directions anywhere but to their house.
Yeah.
But
we don't have a welcome mat.
As someone who has broken the sound barrier,
yes.
When you do get invited to someone's house for the first time,
it's
you're like,
rare gift.
Oh wait, this is a vibe. Yeah. Like, I am now in the belly of the beast.
Yeah,
truly. You have also become family. We are so
once
we love hard.
You're in.
Yeah. It's true. I didn't know you weren't a transplant here, so like I just assumed like because I feel like all of a sudden I was like, oh, I've heard your name. Like, I know what you're doing. And it felt like you had been here for a long, like it had been established for a while. So it's impressive. It's very cool.
Thank you. That's so sweet to say.
Yeah, I just assumed you were from here.
Yeah.
I was like, David's from here.
Yeah.
That's what I think is so important to go back to like that beginning statement of what you have brought to Sip and Bloom and what you've made it in this small amount of time that you've been here, bravo.
Yeah.
It's fabulous. Yeah.
I agree. That's cool.
I think that's a good note to kind of end it on.
Yeah, wrap it
actually.
up on
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for coming on. It was great.
thank you for
Actually,
having me.
one last thing, I guess. Is there anything that we didn't ask that you wished we asked about? I always feel like that's
I'm like,
it can be a good
I don't know
question.
if this will come out in time for
So
the.
we just have to
the
I know
open
that's why I
fashion show.
wanted
I'm
you to
like,
plug it,
"Ew."
but this will come out
But
probably
it'll
the
come
week after.
Yeah, but what do you have after that? What's coming up after that? What's your next like big project? Or do you wait till this one's over and then?
Well, I think something else to note that I want to touch on is our private events that we love for, I mean, some of my favorites are corporate workshops because you all get into the same room and you get to know each other and have a space to be free with each other and didn't even know maybe they're your desk mate or, a lot of weddings coming up that people want, to do bachelorette parties and even baby showers. We love our private events and they're so.
That's a really good point that I think is also key in the larger network that you all work within is that, we're not, I guess, the traditional floral vendor,
Yeah.
but we can provide a really unique experience at your events.
Yeah.
So bring in Sip and Bloom, allow people to have a DIY moment. It's going to add beauty to the room. Instead of the waste of traditional event flowers, guests get to take all of that home,
Yes.
experience something authentic.
Interactive.
It's
Yeah,
interactive
it's an
and fun.
experience
And so
and-
we hope to continue to grow in Twin Cities in that private event format. And so,
That's amazing.
we're excited.
Yay.
I love
This was
it.
so great.
Yeah, thank
You all
you
are
guys so
great
much.
interviewer.
Yes, this was so much fun. I'm so happy that we got to meet. And
Absolutely. So good to hang out. And
Yeah, I'm really glad.
More. Yeah.
Thanks for
sure.
the White Claw, the classy claw.
Yep. Oh, you gave the secret.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, now they know. Now they know.
Now you know it's not water in there.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
cheers, you guys. Thank you.
Thank you for watching the podcast. Hit the like and follow button to stay updated on our latest episode. If you have ideas of topics or guests you'd like us to interview, drop us a comment and we'll see you next time.